In this video I'll show how to replace a top handle on a Zip Series buggy. I have with me a Navigator today, however this is applicable for all of the Zip Series buggies. We'll start off with describing the tools we're using. Just a pair of pliers, a Phillips head screwdriver. I'm using a power drill with a Phillips head attachment. Got a small mallet, a 4mm Allen key and two 3mm Allen keys, and just a piece of foam. So we'll start off by gaining access to the motor controller. So there's 4 screws on the outside we need to remove. Okay, once those 4 screws have been removed, I like to place them into the foam so that you know what order, what screws were taken out. And when we're reassembling, it makes it a lot easier to remember the order. Okay, now that I've got those 4 screws out of the way, I can pop this motor controller out of the housing, and you'll see there's 4 more screws on the cover here that need to be undone. And you can pop this cover out of the way, and I'll just keep the screws within the cover still, put that to the side. So now I need to disconnect the stem cable, which I'll do now. So this cable actually comes installed on the handle, so when you get a replacement handle, this cable will already be running through it. And the second thing I'll disconnect is the positive and negative battery. You'll see here that it says battery positive and negative, so we'll start with the negative and just using the pair of pliers, pulling that away and the second one away. The rest I'm going to keep connected because I don't need to remove them. So now that those 2 have been removed, we will work on getting this housing removed. So we'll start off on the left hand side and work our way across. The 2 up the top can be removed. The centre screw does not need to be removed. And back around the other side. I'm using a magnetised tip, which makes it a little bit easier to get these screws out of the housing. Now this 4th wheel may be in the way, so we'll just tip that up to remove these last 2 screws down here. You can see the pattern that I've put them in is the pattern that I've taken them out. So now that the housing is disconnected from the rest of the chassis, we can move that housing out of the way, and we'll put that up there for later. The next thing I'm going to do is take the motor and gearbox out, which is only 4 screws. So start on the left. So 2 screws on either side of the gearbox, and now I can remove the motor and gearbox, including the motor controller. So what I'll do is just put that motor and gearbox, I'll bring it up here and put this out of the way, just so it doesn't get in the way while I'm removing the rest of the components. Putting these wires to the side. We now need to gain access to the main bolts that hold the handle in position. So you can see these 2 silver accents there and there. That's 1 bolt that we need to disconnect, and the second bolt is here. So we'll start off by removing this bolt here. Now there is a cap on the side, which if I manoeuvre the handle, you'll see this cap here, There's one on either side that needs to be poked out, so I use my Allen key and I can just wedge inside here and poke the cap out. You can do that on either side. Okay, so we'll put the caps to the side also, and we'll use the two 3mm Allen keys, one on either side, one there and one there, and we'll disconnect and as you see on the right hand side, the small screw has worked its way out, so we'll disconnect that from the Allen key, put that to the side, and using one of the Allen keys we can actually poke the bolt out of its housing. So we'll start here and poke that out. So here it is on the other side, force its way out quickly. So again, keeping everything together, I'll put that back into its place like so. Okay, so that's one bolt that's been removed, which will allow us to manoeuvre the handle into a position that will allow us to gain access to the second screw. So I'll tilt the handle on its side and the whole buggy on its side, which I'm not too sure if you can see it well, but here's the opening to which we'll be able to gain access to the next bolt. So you just need to manoeuvre the handle in a particular way, watching the cable as well. So now I'm not sure if you can see there, but I can access the second bolt. So down here there is a bolt on one side and a nut on the other. So I'll just work on removing this bolt and just being careful to hold that nut on the opposite side. So I can feel that with my finger as I put my finger in between. My finger's in here and I'm just holding, I'm not sure if you can see that there, there's a nut there. So I'm just going to hold that in its place as I disconnect. Okay, I can feel that disconnecting now, and I'll just drop the nut through so that the nut falls out. Put that to the side. And lifting the handle, rotating it 180 degrees so that I can gain access to the bolt, which I can see through there now, and pushing the bolt out of its position. At this point you might need to use a mallet just to give it a light tap. Just rotate that again. You can see that the bolt started to work its way out, so we'll just make sure that it's aligned from this end. There we go. And just trying to push that through the hole. There it goes. And there's the bolt. So now the handle can be fully disconnected, like so, and you have your complete handle. So reassembling, I'll just use the same handle, and we'll start off by feeding the cable through the housing, like so. I might just move this up out of the way first, actually. Move that up to here, just so we've got a fair bit of room to work with. Again, feeding that cable through. Just rest that handle there, so you can see this lever here. This is the lever that needs to go through the centre of the handle. So you can see the division here through the handle, and we'll begin by sliding the lever through the handle and aligning everything together. So again, this is probably the most trickiest part of the operation, which is getting everything aligned up properly. So You can hear that I've dropped a tool on the ground there. I'll get that back up. Now it's a little bit difficult to see, but you need to align the lever and the holes straight through. So I'll use one of my tools here to get everything through. So I've got that tool lined up everything, and I'll rotate again 180 degrees. So I can fit the bolt. Keeping everything as best I can in alignment. Just watching out for that cable. Can now fit the bolt. So helps if you've got a magnetised tip. This one's not magnetised unfortunately, but we'll feed that through. And if you can see there, the bolt getting aligned properly. So I might just have to manoeuvre the handle there, just so that it all goes through. And I'm not sure if you can see it there, but the bolt's worked its way through now, and we just need to get the nut on the other side. So we'll grab the nut, sit the handle upright now, and feeding that nut through here. It might be a bit easier upside down the other way actually. So I'll rotate this upside down. Okay, so if I just push this bolt back out a little bit like I've done there, I can put my finger just in the position to get that nut into the housing. Like so. There we go. Rotate, keeping the nut in place with my finger until we've got access here, which I don't know if you can see there, but it's lined up. And then using my 4mm Allen key just to tighten that bolt firmly back up to the nut. If you have someone to assist you holding the handle, it makes life a lot easier. And there we go, it's nice and firm. And we've got that back in a position again. Again, rotating the handle back into its upright position. We now need to focus on getting this bolt through. So we'll start by aligning the handle so that it has clear access point for the bolt to go through. So if we look on this side, you can see that the bolts, not sure if you can see through there, but that's pretty clear to go through. Just give it a little bit of a tap with the mallet. And that's worked its way through okay. Using the 3mm socket, I'll just push that all the way through. I might just take a little bit more of a tap to get all the way through, like so. Okay, and the screw on the other side. So we'll feed that screw through the gap into the bolt and tighten it back up again. It's just sweating, it's a bit hot here today. Okay, so now that we've got the cable and the bolt back through, the handle's fastened back into position, and we'll proceed with putting the motor and gearbox back into place. So what I'll do is put these two cables to the side here so they're out of the way, and then feed the motor and gearbox back into their housing and sit back into position like so. Okay, and then we'll start by fastening the motor gearbox back onto the chassis, lowering the torque a little bit. Do this on either side. Okay, now the motor and gearbox is in place. We'll focus on getting the housing put back together. I'm not going to worry about putting these cables back through until the very end. So we'll start off by putting this housing back on. So I'll grab the housing and I'll feed the motor controller on an angle through the housing along with these leads, and then fit the housing back into its position. This way I know that all the leads aren't caught up anywhere, so I can pull them firmly and just make sure that everything's nicely assembled. Okay, so ensuring that these are tucked in nicely and everything looks like it's lining up okay, we'll proceed with fastening the screws back where they came from. So we're starting off at the top this time and fasten the rest of these together. Going onto the side. On a lower torque setting just to make sure we don't strip any of the plastic. And then onto the other side. Okay, and then two more underneath.